You know what hurts more than betrayal? It's realizing the person you trusted the most has been lying to you with a straight face. My husband always said business trips were part of the grind. He wore his suit, kissed me goodbye, and promised these trips were for our future, for our financial stability, for the dream house we'd one day build. And for a long time, I believed him. I supported him. I packed his bags, ironed his shirts, and wished him luck like the loving wife I thought I was. But then, little cracks started to show. Receipts in his pockets from restaurants he'd never mentioned. A sudden conference in a city he supposedly hated. Calls that went straight to voicemail when I knew he wasn't in meetings that late. At first, I told myself I was overthinking. I didn't want to become one of those paranoid wives snooping around. But intuition has a way of screaming at you when you try too hard to silence it. One night, while he was away, I couldn't sleep. Something inside me said, check his emails. My hands shook as I opened his laptop. And there it was. Confirmation of everything I feared. Not work schedules, not client follow-ups, just hotel bookings under different names. Photos, messages from a woman who called him her love. My husband's business trips weren't about business at all. I remember sitting there in the dark, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out the silence. I felt rage, humiliation, but also something else. Clarity. He thought he was clever. He thought I'd never find out. But he forgot one thing. He was messing with a woman who doesn't crumble. He was messing with me. And in that moment, I decided I wouldn't just confront him. I would make sure that everything he lied for, everything he thought he was building in the shadows, would collapse right on top of him. The next morning, I greeted him as if nothing had happened. He came home from his trip, all smiles, pretending to be tired, smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. I hugged him, cooked his favorite dinner, and even asked about his meetings like the perfect wife. He didn't notice the cold calculation in my eyes. If he wanted to play games, fine. I'd play them better. For weeks, I pretended. Every time he left for another trip, I tracked his location. Every excuse he gave me, I documented. I started gathering evidence, hotel records, credit card statements, screenshots of his secret messages. I even reached out to the other woman without her realizing it was me, and what I learned made my blood boil. She wasn't just some fling. He had promised her vacations, gifts, even hinted at leaving me for her once he had enough money saved. Imagine that. While I was working overtime, managing the house, supporting him, he was plotting a future where I didn't exist. But the more I uncovered, the calmer I became. Because knowledge is power, and I was holding all the cards now. One evening, when he left for another conference, I smiled, kissed him goodbye, and waited until he was gone. Then I started my own trip, to my lawyer's office. We drafted papers, not just divorce papers, but financial claims, asset freezes, the whole package. By the time he came back, the trap would already be closing. But I wasn't finished. See, revenge isn't just about walking away. It's about making sure they feel the weight of what they've done. And my husband was about to learn that lesson in the most brutal way possible. The day of reckoning came faster than he expected. He walked into our home after another trip, whistling like a man who thought he was in control. On the table, I had prepared dinner and a neat folder with everything I had collected. "Sit down," I said calmly. At first, he laughed it off. "You're overreacting. That's work stuff. That's business." But when I pulled out the hotel receipts, the photos, the printouts of his little love notes, his face drained of color. He stuttered, tried to spin stories, but the evidence spoke louder than his lies ever could. And then, I handed him the final paper, the divorce filing, along with notice of frozen accounts and property claims. His jaw dropped. He realized I hadn't just caught him. I had outplayed him. "You wanted a future without me?" I said, staring him straight in the eye. "Congratulations, you've got it. but it's going to cost you everything. His mistress? She didn't stick around once she realized he wasn't the wealthy, free man he pretended to be. The business trip stopped, the money dried up, and suddenly he was just a man who had lost his wife, his stability, and his reputation all in one move. And me? I walked away not broken, not defeated, but stronger, wealthier, and free. It's funny how betrayal can break some people, but for others, it becomes the fire that forges strength. My husband thought he was clever, but in the end, he underestimated me. He underestimated the power of truth, of patience, of strategy. Revenge isn't always about screaming, crying, or begging for answers. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is quiet. It's watching the liar drown in the consequences of their own choices while you rise above it all. And if you're listening to this and you've ever been betrayed, remember this. You don't have to fight dirty to win. You just have to be smarter. Let them dig their own grave, and when the time comes, make sure they fall into it. Because at the end of the day, karma doesn't miss. And in my case, karma had a little help from me. When the papers were signed and the house was officially mine, I walked through every room in silence. The memories were there, carved into the walls, painted into the corners, both the good and the bad. But instead of bitterness, I felt something surprising. I felt relief. This space no longer reminded me of betrayal. It reminded me of strength, of how far I had come. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was the author of my own story. In the weeks that followed, I made the house my own again. I repainted the walls, changed the furniture, and even planted flowers in the backyard, the very spot where he had once lied to me about business calls. Every petal that bloomed was a symbol of resilience. Every change was me reclaiming what was mine. My ex tried to reach out a few times. At first, it was angry messages, blaming me for ruining his life. Then it turned into desperate attempts, like late-night calls and guilt-tripping texts. But by then, I had grown stronger. His words didn't hurt me anymore. They didn't have power, because I realized something crucial. When someone betrays you, they're revealing their own weakness, not yours. And once you take that power back, they can never control your story again. One night, as I sat on the porch watching the sun set behind the trees, I thought about the version of myself who cried in the dark when I first discovered his lies. I wanted to hug her, to tell her that she would make it through, that she would rise even stronger, and that she would one day sit here, smiling, knowing she had won, not by revenge alone, but by rebuilding her life on her own terms. This wasn't just about payback anymore. It was about freedom. It was about choosing myself over someone who never deserved me. And if you've ever been betrayed, let my story be a reminder. You don't just survive heartbreak. You rebuild, you rise, and you create a life that makes the people who wronged you realize they lost the best thing they ever had. Because true revenge is living better than they ever imagined you could.